Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining me for Sunday school. I'm looking forward to sharing the lesson with you today and just having a chance for you to see me. I wish I could see all of you. I miss seeing you all running down with your donuts and going to your Sunday school classes. But we'll keep up a lesson today and maybe a fun craft, and we'll just give this a try and we'll see how it goes. If you like something, you can tell me. You can have your parents send me an email, or you can comment below. If you want to do something special or something different, you can let me know that too. I'd love to hear what you're thinking about. So the first thing we're going to do, as we usually do when we start Sunday school, is to say a prayer to gather us all together. Thank you, God, for bringing us together today. Bless our time together. Bless us all as we listen to a story about your son, Jesus, and his friends. Amen. So the first thing I'm going to do is tell you the story of Zacchaeus. And he was a person who lived in Jericho. He was a tax collector. And he encountered Jesus as Jesus was walking through Jericho to go to to go to Jerusalem for Passover. So here's a picture. This is from the DK Illustrated Family Bible. And here's a picture of Jesus walking through town. There's lots of crowds. People are gathered. They've heard about Jesus. They're there. There's birds singing and people yelling and probably some merchants. It's probably pretty hot and dusty. And Zacchaeus is there and he wants to see Jesus. And this is from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 19, verses 1 through 10. Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through. A man was there by the name of Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was wealthy. He wanted to see who Jesus was, but being a short man, he could not because of the crowd. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore fig tree to see him, since Jesus was coming that way. When Jesus reached the spot, he looked up and said to him, "Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today." So he came down at once and welcomed him gladly. All the people saw this and began to mutter, "He has gone to be a guest of a sinner." But Zacchaeus stood up and said to the Lord, "Look, Lord, here and now I give half of my possessions to the poor, and if I have cheated anybody out of anything, I will pay back 4 times this amount." Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, because this man too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man who came to seek and to save what was lost." The word of the Lord. Amen. So we have Zacchaeus who climbed a tree. Have you ever been short and too small to see what was going on around you, because maybe you were in a crowd at a parade and there was too many tall people in front of you? Well, that's how Zacchaeus felt. He was a short man, and even though he was a sinner and he was a tax collector, and people hated him because he collected not only the taxes that they were supposed to pay, but he made them pay extra taxes. And so he was cheating people and stealing from them, and they did not like it. So imagine Zacchaeus was pushing his way through the crowd and he couldn't get to a place where he could see, so he decided to climb a tree. And I bet people were shouting at him and telling him to get down, and don't you look funny, a grown man up in the tree? But he did it anyway because he really wanted to see Jesus. So the first thing that we're going to do is make a tree and a mobile that you can hang that will show Zacchaeus climbing up the tree. So this is my little Zacchaeus climbing up, 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 up into the tree. So the first thing that you need to do is get something like a piece of paper or cardboard or a paper plate. I used a piece of junk mail that was sort of stiff and I folded it in half. But this time I'm going to just use a piece of paper that I have handy here. And I'm going to fold it in half. Now, some of you on the Sunday school list, I sent out the papers, and so you might actually have some printouts of pictures. Here, I'll show them to you so everybody can see them. They're leaves and a picture of Zacchaeus. So there's some leaves, and maybe you cut those out already and colored them. If not, that's okay. I'm going to show you how to do it without having the picture. And then here's a picture of Zacchaeus, and some of you may have cut that out. And then here's a picture of all the steps that we're going to do right now. So if you have a piece of paper or a paper plate, you can make it about this big or cut the paper plate in half. And then you can see in the example, I did not have the pictures cut out, but I did have colored construction paper. If you don't have colored construction paper, you can just draw on, actually you don't even have to attach it. You could just draw right on your base if you wanted to. I'm going to show you how I cut out the leaves for the tree. I just use my scissors and cut, but you could also use a marker. I'll use a green one, and you could draw first. Just something that looks like the top of a tree to remind us where Zacchaeus was going, up into the tree. I don't know what a sycamore fig actually looks like. My friend has a fig in her backyard, and I think it has really big leaves. I don't know if it's a sycamore fig. Do you have a fig tree in your backyard? They grow up really big every year. It dies back in the fall, and then it comes back in the spring. So the first thing I'm going to do is use my glue stick to attach the leaves of the tree to the white part that's holding it up like that. Just like that. Then the next step is to take some brown construction paper and cut some tree trunks. And I just cut a little strip like that, and then I cut 4 pieces. And then I took a ribbon, and you can see this is just what I had in my craft box. It's not brown, it doesn't look like a tree trunk, that's okay. And this time, if you have a stapler, I would staple this. It's a little tricky, or you can just use some tape. I stapled it so that the smooth part of the staple was on the front. And then I laid it down on the table, and I had to staple. I tried earlier to glue the tree trunks to the ribbon, but it didn't work. So I'm just going to show you how I stapled the tree trunks to the ribbon. And if I'm going too fast, you can go back and finish this after, and you can watch the video because it'll be on the Facebook page. So then we have the tree trunk, and now we need Zacchaeus, little short Zacchaeus, to climb up the tree. The first thing we need to do to make Zacchaeus is to punch a hole, and I have a hole punch, but if you don't have a hole punch, you can do a couple things. You can either do that. Now at the top, if I'm going to hang this, I might hang it in my window for a little while. You can sort of take a pair of scissors, or have your parents do this, and bend the paper a little bit, and then cut a little slit. And that's another way to make a hole. And then you can put a little ribbon through there. So now for Zacchaeus, I didn't make a printout of Zacchaeus. You can see my crazy drawing. I'm not a good drawer of people. So I took a magic marker and I drew a stick Zacchaeus. with his head. And then I drew his arms holding on to the tree, and then his legs climbing up. So there's Zacchaeus. And then I punched a hole in the top of his paper too. I didn't even cut him out. And then I had some string, but that's because I ran out of ribbon. And so you want to cut your Zacchaeus string a little bit shorter than your, or about the same length as your tree trunk, because you're going to tie 2 knots in it. And the first thing we're going to do is poke the string through the hole. Like that. Then I'm going to tie a knot to hold it on. Now, if you pull too hard, you'll pull it through, but it will hold it if you don't. And then I'm going to put the rest of Zacchaeus, put the other part of the string up here through the hole in the tree branch and tie another knot like that. And now we can see our friend Zacchaeus starting at the bottom. And whoops, here, maybe if I hold that with my knees, there we go. And then we can see Zacchaeus climbing up, 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 a little bit more Zacchaeus. Oops. Up. Now, if you cut your Zacchaeus a little better, he won't be a giant piece of paper. Up into the tree where he can see Jesus. How do you think Jesus knew Zacchaeus was up there? It doesn't say that he saw him. He said that he looked up and said, Zacchaeus, come down. Jesus knows where we are and he knows our names. And he will call out to us if we're listening, as Zacchaeus was, because he was so excited to see Jesus. So then we see Zacchaeus coming down when Jesus calls him to come down. And I have another thing I want to show you. One of the things about the tax collectors, or about those times, is that if someone stole something from someone, they were caught, as part of their punishment, they had to pay it back. So if you stole 4 gold coins, we'll use these old pennies. If you stole 4 gold coins from someone and they caught you, you would have to give back 4 gold coins actually, if you stole 5 gold coins, you would have to give back 5 plus 1 extra, because that's a fifth. You have 5 coins, so 1/5. So you have to give it all back plus 1/5. But Zacchaeus was so moved by Jesus and by what he had done wrong and how much he wanted to change his ways that he gave back 4 times as much. So he stole, if he were to, let's say he stole 4, he actually gave back 16 plus the original 4. So Zacchaeus not only did what was custom, which was making people pay back 1/5, he gave back the original plus 4 times that. So Zacchaeus was really changed by his encounter with Jesus. And one of the things that we do during Lent is often we collect money to give to the poor. And in the Episcopal Church, we call that alms. That's a fancy word for giving money to the poor. So our next little craft is going to be to make a jar for you to collect your pennies. Maybe you'll do an extra chore for your parents. Maybe you'll give part of your allowance. And then when Lent is over and Easter comes, you can rejoice in part by using your pennies to share, or your whatever money you've collected to share with people who are in need. And you might bring that back to church when we get back there, or you might go buy food to give to someone that you see on the street, or save it until a time when it's okay to go see people and hand them some money or some food. So this is what I did. I made a little cup that says, "My money for the poor," and a little tree to remind me of Zacchaeus and how he gave half of his wealth away to the poor. And this, you can use, I didn't have a can that was empty. You could use a can. I thought about dumping out the coconut milk and trying to think of what I could do with it for dinner tonight, but I decided not to. I just won't show you the can. Or I did in my recycle bin have this Starbucks cup, so I used that. But if you don't have anything that's like trash, we also had just an old plastic cup from our summer pool, or you could use an IKEA cup. So what you can do is cut out a piece of blue or any color paper, or you could draw a picture and put it on. And then I cut out a tree trunk, which I just made it like a straight piece of construction paper. But again, if you don't have any colored construction paper, just use your crayons or markers and draw it. And then I cut out another piece like that, and I actually ended up taping them together because my glue stick was not working very well. And in the end, I taped the tree inside because it was flopping over. And then you can write something on here. Maybe you're going to collect money for a food pantry, or maybe you want to give it to the water ministry at St. Columba's. You could put that on your cup. And then you can put this here and maybe on your dining room table, and when you get your allowance or when you do something special extra at home, an extra chore, maybe you can ask for some money to be put in your jar to help bless the poor later. So we have seen Zacchaeus completely excited. He doesn't care if he gets teased, and climbs the tree to see Jesus. And we have also seen him then be so sorry for his bad things that he's done that he gives away a lot of what he has accumulated. And I hope that you'll think about Zacchaeus and how you can greet Jesus and be excited to see him, and all the different things that he has taught us about being kind to each other and about giving to people and loving people. And before I say our closing prayer, I wanted to share something with you. I sent out in my email to families the idea to create a family altar at home. And one of the ways to do that is to create a space, find some place in your home. Maybe it's just the little top of a table. Maybe you have a guest room you could put it in. Maybe you live in a small place like we do, and we put our family altar on a tray that we can move around. And here is our family altar, and I want to tell you about the things on it. I put a purple cloth from Africa that a friend of ours in Africa made, because purple is the time of Lent. And I put the shells and some sand that I collected in Florida this year before we went on vacation in the end of February. And then I put this cross. Usually an altar has a cross on it or near it, and this is a cross that my husband Joe painted when he was a J2A leader. And Joe also put on this old soldering iron that he's had for more than 40 years. And the reason he put it here was because it reminds him of his childhood, and it also was out in our basement, and somebody had been using this old soldering iron to fix something. One of my kids was fixing a electric car that he has. And then my older son Max put a Lego, because that's something that he loves to do, is build Legos. And Oscar put this lizard that reminded him of a trip to Florida that we took a few years ago. And then I put a candle, because that's also a symbol of reminding us that God is always with us and Jesus is the light of the world. And so I hope that you'll think about making a little altar with a cloth, maybe a cross, simple cross if you don't have one. You can lash 2 twigs together and a